In the tranquil morning glow at Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary, a ray of hope emerged from the shadows of tragedy. Three tiny bobcat cubs, no more than 4 weeks old, had been cruelly snatched from their wild home and became victims of the illegal wildlife trade. Their mother, discovered severely dehydrated and injured, tragically did not survive the ordeal. Placed in the sanctuary, the traumatized cubs became withdrawn, their tiny bodies trembling with fears, refusing to eat. As days turned into a desperate struggle and conventional methods failed, hope dwindled for these fragile lives. But then a daring, seemingly impossible idea emerged. The sanctuary decided to introduce a gentle rescue dog named Bella, a new mother herself, to act as a surrogate. Could a domestic dog recently weaned from her own litter be the answer to saving these wild souls? What began as a desperate attempt to save three lives transformed into a miraculous bond, defying all expectations and rewriting the rules of wildlife rehabilitation. This is a heartwarming story of an unlikely family as Bella, the gentle golden retriever mix, stepped in to nurture the struggling bobcats. Before we dive into this incredible journey, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new stories. The morning sun had barely crested the mountains surrounding Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary when Sarah Miller's phone rang. It was 5:58 a.m. At 58 years old, Sarah, with 30 years of wildlife rehabilitation experience, thought she'd seen everything. But the panic in Ranger David's voice told her this day would be profoundly different. "We've got three bobcat kittens." Ranger David stammered, his voice raw with emotion. "Tiny things confiscated from some lowlife trying to sell them at a truck stop outside of Tucson." His voice cracked. "We lost the mother. She was badly dehydrated and injured when they found her." Sarah closed her eyes, her weathered hand gripping the phone tighter. Another casualty of the illegal exotic pet trade that had been flourishing in Arizona's border regions. "How old?" she asked, already calculating space requirements and formula needs in her head. "Can't be more than 4 weeks. They're refusing food, Sarah, all three of them. The vet says they're failing fast." 30 minutes later, Sarah stood in her small examination room, gazing down at three bundles of spotted fur. Each was small enough to fit in her palm, their eyes open, blue-gray and unfocused. Their tiny bodies trembled with fear and hunger. The smallest one, a female, with a distinct white patch on her ear, made a pitiful mewing sound that seemed to echo through the sanctuary's quiet morning air. "Oh, little ones," Sarah whispered, her heart aching. She reached gently to stroke the smallest kitten with one finger, but it recoiled, hissing weakly. "I know you miss your mama. I'm so sorry." For 3 agonizing days, Sarah tried everything she knew. Bottle feedings were vehemently refused. Syringe feedings resulted in stress so severe that the male kitten had a seizure. They huddled together in the corner of their heated enclosure, 3 diminishing specks of spotted fur, their eyes growing duller by the hour. On the morning of the 4th day, Sarah sat in her office, head in her hands, the sanctuary's financial reports forgotten on her desk. The sanctuary was her life's work, built on land inherited from her grandfather in northern Arizona's high country. At nearly 60, the lines on her face told stories of countless rescues, rehabilitations, and the inevitable heartbreaks that came with the work. Her silvering hair was perpetually pulled back in a practical ponytail, her hands calloused from years of manual labor. Her granddaughter Chloe, a wildlife biology student doing an internship at the sanctuary, knocked softly before entering. "I heard you didn't go to bed last night, Grandma," she said, setting down a mug of coffee. At 22, Chloe had her grandmother's determined green eyes and practical nature, but her approach to wildlife rehabilitation was influenced by newer research than what had been available in Sarah's day. Sarah sighed. "Those bobcat babies won't make it another day without nutrition. I've tried everything, Chloe, everything." Chloe perched on the edge of the desk, her expression thoughtful. "Not everything, Grandma. What about Bella?" Sarah looked up sharply. "Bella. She's not even a year old herself, and she's a dog, Chloe, a rescue mutt. A rescue mutt who just weaned a litter of puppies 3 weeks ago." Chloe pointed out, her eyes lighting up with the idea. "She's still lactating a little, and she's the gentlest soul I've ever met." "It's too dangerous," Sarah began, but Chloe cut her off. "More dangerous than letting those kittens starve. You always told me that in rehabilitation, sometimes you have to try the unthinkable." Sarah stared at her granddaughter, memories flooding back of her own mentor's words from decades ago. Sometimes nature needs a little help connecting dots it wouldn't connect on its own. Old Dr. Thompson had told her once when they'd successfully paired an orphaned hawk chick with a surrogate father. "Get Bella," Sarah said finally, a flicker of desperate hope in her voice. "But we do this carefully, Chloe, very carefully." When Bella had come to the sanctuary the previous winter, a pregnant stray found half frozen in a drainage ditch during a rare snowstorm. She was a medium-sized dog of indeterminate breeding, perhaps some golden retriever, some shepherd, and who knew what else with soft golden fur and gentle brown eyes that seemed to hold a deep well of patience. After delivering her puppies in the sanctuary's small veterinary clinic, she had proven to be an exceptional mother, leading to all 6 puppies being quickly adopted by families in the nearby town of Pine Creek. Bella herself had become a sanctuary favorite, accompanying Sarah on her rounds, her calm presence seemingly therapeutic to many of the injured animals in their care. Sarah had planned to find her a permanent home once she fully recovered from motherhood, but somehow that plan had been repeatedly delayed. They brought Bella to a separate room adjacent to where the Bobcat kittens were being kept. Sarah sat on the floor cradling the smallest kitten, the female, with a white patched ear and a soft towel. The kitten's breathing was shallow, her tiny body cool despite the heated blanket. "Easy, Bella," Sarah murmured as Chloe led the dog in. "Easy, girl." Bella's nose twitched immediately, her ears perking forward. She approached slowly, her tail making small, uncertain wags. When she reached Sarah, she lowered her head, gently sniffing the tiny bundle in the towel. The kitten stirred, giving a small hiss that seemed to take the last of its energy. Sarah held her breath, ready to pull the kitten away at the first sign of aggression from either animal. But what happened next would stay with her for the rest of her life. Bella whined softly, a sound achingly similar to the one she made when searching for her puppies. She laid down beside Sarah, her head extended toward the kitten, and began to lick the tiny creature with gentle, motherly strokes. The kitten, instead of recoiling, as it had from human touch, grew still. After a moment, it turned its small face toward the warmth and comfort of Bella's fur. "Grandma," Chloe whispered, her eyes wide. "Look!" Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she carefully set the kitten down closer to Bella. The dog immediately curled around it, continuing to groom the tiny creature as if it were her own puppy. "Let's try the others," Sarah said softly. One by one, they brought the other 2 kittens in. The same miracle repeated itself. Bella accepted each one, gathering them against her warm body, grooming them with undeniable maternal care. Within an hour, all 3 kittens were nestled against her belly, and to Sarah's astonishment, they began to nurse. "It won't be ideal nutrition," Sarah murmured, watching as the kittens suckled weakly. "We'll still need to supplement with formula if they'll take it. But this connection might save them." Chloe squeezed her grandmother's shoulder. "Sometimes the medicine they need most is love, Grandma. You taught me that." Over the next week, a transformation occurred that defied all of Sarah's professional expectations. Under Bella's constant care, the Bobcat kittens began to thrive. They gained weight, their fur grew glossier, and their eyes brightened with kitten curiosity. Bella never left their side, grooming them, carrying them gently by the scruff when they strayed too far, and rumbling low warnings when they played too rough. The sanctuary staff began calling the kittens Patches, the female with the white ear, Tracker, the larger male, and Pounce, the smaller male who proved quickest to explore. Bella seemed to recognize each by name, responding differently to their individual moods and behaviors. Sarah documented everything, taking photos and videos, keeping meticulous notes on their development. This unusual interspecies adoption was unlike anything she'd encountered in her long career, and she recognized both its rarity and its potential value to wildlife rehabilitation techniques. By the time the kittens were 8 weeks old, they were eating solid food specialized formula mixed with small pieces of appropriate meat, though they still slept curled against Bella's warm body each night. Their play had taken on distinctly feline characteristics, with stalking, pouncing, and climbing becoming favorite activities. Bella watched it all with maternal patience, occasionally joining their games but mostly serving as a safe harbor to which they returned when tired or uncertain. "Their wild instincts are intact," Sarah reported to Dr. Miller, the sanctuary's consulting veterinarian, during one of his regular visits. "They're developing hunting behaviors right on schedule, despite the unusual circumstances. Dr. Miller, a man in his 40s who had dedicated his career to wildlife medicine, nodded as he examined Tracker. Their physical development is excellent, no signs of imprinting on humans, which is crucial. But I'm concerned about their attachment to Bella. These cats will eventually need to be either released or placed in a proper facility. They can't stay with a dog forever. Sarah had been avoiding this reality, though she knew he was right. The sanctuary's mission was rehabilitation with the goal of release whenever possible. For animals that couldn't be released, they sought placement in appropriate wildlife facilities. Keeping wild animals as pets, even in a sanctuary setting, went against everything Sarah believed in. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," she said, watching as Tracker scrambled from the examination table and raced back to where Bella waited patiently. "For now, she's giving them what they need. Just remember," Dr. Miller cautioned, "the longer they stay with her, the harder the separation will be for all of them." By the time the kittens were 4 months old, they had become the sanctuary's unofficial mascots. Volunteers delighted in watching them from a respectful distance, observing as they practiced increasingly coordinated hunting pounces on fallen leaves or each other's tails. Bella remained their constant companion, though her role had shifted from nurturing mother to patient playmate and guardian. Sarah knew the time for decisions was approaching. The Bobcats were growing rapidly, their baby spots fading to adult markings, their blue kitten eyes changing to the tawny gold of mature Bobcats. Soon they would begin the transition to independence that would naturally occur in the wild. "We've had interest from the Mountain Wildlife Preserve in Colorado," Chloe told her one evening as they sat on the porch of Sarah's small cabin on the sanctuary grounds, watching the sunset paint the ponderosa pines in gold. "They have an excellent bobcat habitat and educational program. All three could stay together." Sarah nodded, her heart heavy. "It's a good option, better than most. But we need to start the separation process soon. Get them used to being without Bella before they're transferred." The following day, they made the first attempt. While the Bobcats were eating their morning meal, they moved Bella to Sarah's cabin, a quarter-mile from the enclosure where the young Bobcats lived. The results were immediate and distressing. Once they realized Bella was gone, all three Bobcats began pacing frantically, making high-pitched calls that echoed through the sanctuary. They refused their food, scratched at the doors, and huddled together in obvious distress. But the most heartbreaking reaction came from Bella herself, who howled mournfully and scratched at Sarah's door until her paws were raw. "This isn't working," Chloe said after 4 hours of mounting anxiety. "Their stress levels are too high. Patches hasn't stopped calling since we removed Bella." Sarah watched through the observation window as the smallest Bobcat sat in the center of the enclosure, her head raised, releasing call after desperate call for her surrogate mother. "Bring Bella back," Sarah conceded, her voice filled with defeat. "We'll try a more gradual approach." The reunion was emotional for everyone who witnessed it. Bella burst into the enclosure and was immediately swarmed by 3 jubilant young Bobcats, all purring thunderously as they rubbed against her, checked her over, and finally curled up beside her in exhausted relief. Sarah and Chloe exchanged worried glances over the touching scene. The bond was even stronger than they had realized. For the next 2 weeks, they tried various separation strategies, shorter periods apart, keeping them in adjacent enclosures, where they could see each other, gradual distance increases. Nothing worked. The Bobcats became visibly depressed when separated from Bella for more than a short time, and Bella herself showed signs of anxiety and sadness. "I've never seen anything like it," Sarah confessed to Dr. Miller during a concerned phone call. "It's as if they've forgotten their different species. They've created their own family unit." "It's not unheard of in captive settings," Dr. Miller replied thoughtfully. "There are documented cases of unusual interspecies bonds. The question is, what's best for their long-term welfare?" The decision came to a head when representatives from the Mountain Wildlife Preserve arrived to evaluate the Bobcats for potential transfer. Dr. Thomas Wilkins, their head zoologist, observed the unusual family for a full day before meeting with Sarah in her office. "They're beautiful cats in excellent physical condition," he acknowledged, reviewing his notes. "But I have serious concerns about separating them from the dog. The stress could cause significant setbacks in their development." "So you won't take them?" Sarah asked, part disappointed, part relieved. Dr. Wilkins stroked his beard thoughtfully. "I didn't say that. What if we took the dog too?" Sarah stared at him. You can't be serious. She's not a wild animal. She's a domestic dog who should be in a home with people. Hear me out, Dr. Wilkins said, leaning forward in his chair. Our preserve has staff housing on site. One of our senior keepers, Maria, has been looking for a companion animal. What if Bella lived with her but had supervised time with the Bobcats daily? As the cats mature further, we could gradually decrease that time, allowing them to develop more independence while avoiding traumatic separation. The idea was unprecedented, but the more Sarah considered it, the more sense it made. The preserve had resources and expertise that her small sanctuary couldn't match, and the arrangement would prioritize the welfare of all the animals involved. After much discussion, consultations with the sanctuary's board of directors, and a long conversation with Maria herself via video call, Sarah agreed to the unusual arrangement. The day of departure was bittersweet. Sarah and Chloe personally accompanied the animals to Colorado, riding in the specially equipped van with Bella and the crated Bobcats. Bella, sensing something significant was happening, stayed close to the carriers occasionally, whining softly to reassure her unusual offspring. The Mountain Wildlife Preserve was impressive, a sprawling facility nestled in the Colorado Rockies with large naturalistic habitats and a dedicated staff of wildlife professionals. Maria, their senior animal keeper, was a warm, competent woman in her 30s who immediately impressed Sarah with her knowledge and compassion. They'll have 3 acres of forested habitat, Maria explained as she showed them the specially prepared enclosure. It's designed to encourage natural behaviors while allowing for observation and care. The Bobcats' introduction to their new home went smoothly with Bella present to provide reassurance as they cautiously explored the unfamiliar territory. By sunset, all 3 were comfortable enough to begin climbing the carefully placed logs and rock formations, while Bella watched attentively from below. When it was time for Bella to go to Maria's cabin for the night, Sarah held her breath, expecting the distress they'd seen during previous separation attempts. But something had changed. Perhaps it was the new environment, or the fact that the Bobcats were now occupied with exploring their expansive habitat, but their reaction was milder than anticipated. They called for Bella a few times but didn't show the extreme anxiety they had before. I think they sense this is different, Maria observed, that this is where they belong and that Bella will return. Over the next 6 months, Sarah received regular updates and occasionally visited the preserve. The transition had gone better than anyone dared hope. The Bobcats thrived in their new habitat, growing into strong, healthy subadults. Bella adjusted beautifully to living with Maria, enjoying the comforts of domestic life while still spending part of each day with her Bobcat family. As the Bobcats matured, their relationship with Bella naturally evolved. They still greeted her enthusiastically during her daily visits, but they became increasingly independent, spending more time exploring their habitat and practicing hunting skills. By the time they reached their first birthday, they were magnificent young adults, their bond with Bella changing from dependency to companionship. What happened 18 months later, however, was what truly astounded everyone involved. It began with an alarming phone call from Maria. "Tracker is sick, Sarah," she reported, her voice tense. "Dr. Evans thinks it's a bacterial infection. He's not responding to treatment and he's refusing food." Sarah, now 60 and considering retirement, though not quite ready to let go of the sanctuary, felt her heart sink. She had remained deeply invested in the Bobcats' welfare, considering them among the most special cases of her long career. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad enough that we're very concerned," Maria admitted. "He's withdrawn to the far corner of the quarantine area, won't let anyone near him, not even me." Sarah made the decision instantly. "I'm coming, and bring Bella to see him right away." The drive to Colorado felt interminable. By the time Sarah arrived at the preserve, Tracker had been ill for 3 days, growing weaker, despite the medical team's best efforts. "We can't get medication into him without sedation, and he's too weak for repeated sedation," Dr. Evans explained as they hurried toward the veterinary building. "He needs to eat and take oral antibiotics, but he's refusing everything." They found Maria waiting outside the quarantine room, Bella sitting alertly at her side. The dog had aged beautifully into her role as companion to both Maria and the Bobcats, her face now showing touches of white around the muzzle, but her eyes still bright with intelligence. "She knows something's wrong," Maria said. "She's been whining to come here since Tracker got sick. Through the observation window, Sarah could see Tracker curled in the corner of the room, his magnificent coat dull, his sides heaving with the effort of breathing. He looked smaller, somehow vulnerable in his illness. "Let Bella in," Sarah said firmly. "Let's see if she can reach him when we can't." They equipped Bella with a sturdy harness and leash for safety, then carefully opened the quarantine room door. Bella entered slowly, her nose working her ears forward with concern. She spotted Tracker immediately and gave a soft whine of recognition. Tracker raised his head weakly, his eyes finding Bella. For a moment he seemed confused, as if his illness had clouded his memory. Then he made a small sound, not quite a meow, not quite a chuff, a sound Sarah had heard many times when the Bobcats were kittens greeting their surrogate mother. Moving with gentle purpose, Bella approached Tracker, ignoring the veterinary team's cautions to be careful. When she reached him, she lowered herself to the floor beside him and began to groom his face and ears, just as she had when he was a tiny orphan kitten. What happened next left everyone in the room speechless. Tracker, who had rejected all food for days, allowed Dr. Evans to approach with a small bowl of broth containing dissolved antibiotics. With Bella present, providing comfort and security with her familiar presence, Tracker lapped weakly at the medicinal broth. "I'll be damned," Dr. Evans whispered. Over the next 3 days, Bella rarely left Tracker's side. She slept beside him, encouraged him to eat, and seemed to provide a strength that medicine alone couldn't offer. When Patches and Pounce were briefly allowed to visit their brother, it created a tableau that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. 3 grown Bobcats and their canine surrogate mother together again in a moment of need. Tracker's recovery was gradual but steady. By the end of the week, he was eating regularly and showing improved energy. The infection responded to the antibiotics, and his prognosis improved from guarded to good. "It's remarkable," Dr. Evans told Sarah as they watched Tracker take his first short walk around the quarantine enclosure, Bella walking patiently beside him. "I've worked with wildlife for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this relationship. Love transcends species," Sarah said, simply thinking of all the wonders she'd witnessed in her decades of wildlife work. On the day Tracker was well enough to return to the main habitat, Maria suggested something unprecedented. "I think Bella should go with him, just for today, to help him settle back in with his siblings." It was an unusual request, but given the extraordinary circumstances, the preserve's director approved it. With careful supervision, Bella accompanied Tracker back to the habitat where Patches and Pounce waited. Sarah, watching from the observation deck, will never forget what she saw that day. As they entered the enclosure, all 3 Bobcats came together in a reunion of purrs and gentle head bumps. Then, in a moment that seemed choreographed, though it was entirely natural, they surrounded Bella, their surrogate mother, each finding a place beside her as they had as kittens. For several minutes, the unusual family simply existed together in perfect harmony, wild and domestic, feline and canine, a bond forged in desperate need and sustained by something that could only be called love. "This is why I've done this work all these years," Sarah said softly to Chloe, who had flown in when she heard about Tracker's illness. "For moments like this, moments that remind us that healing sometimes comes in the most unexpected forms." In the years that followed, the relationship between Bella and her Bobcat family continued to evolve. As the Bobcats matured fully, their need for her constant presence diminished, but their bond remained. Bella, growing older but still spry, continued her daily visits, now more friend than mother, but no less important to their well-being. The sanctuary and the preserve jointly published a paper on the extraordinary case, contributing valuable insights to the field of wildlife rehabilitation. Sarah, who finally retired at 65, often used the story in her lectures to aspiring wildlife rehabilitators. "Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't in a syringe or a surgery," she would tell them, showing slides of Bella and her Bobcat family through the years. "Sometimes it's in connection, in meeting a need so fundamental that it transcends the boundaries we think exist between species." And on quiet evenings, when she visited the preserve to see the animals that had changed her understanding of what was possible, Sarah would watch Bella, now elderly, but still devoted, sitting peacefully near the habitat fence. The 3 adult Bobcats lounging nearby, their family bond enduring, despite everything that logic said should have pulled them apart. "The unthinkable," Sarah would murmur, remembering her initial fears when Chloe first suggested the unlikely pairing. "Sometimes the unthinkable turns out to be exactly what's needed." In the golden light of sunset, wild and domestic rescued and rescuer family in the truest sense of the word, they remain together a living testament to the healing power of love without boundaries. This incredible story teaches us that love and compassion know no boundaries, not even between different species. It reminds us that sometimes the most profound solutions to our problems can come from unexpected places, and that empathy and connection are powerful forces for healing and survival. What are your thoughts on this incredible bond? Share your comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Video rating 10/10.